I'd always been proud of my mom. She won a ton of horse riding competitions. When I was a kid, my parents and I often hung out at an equestrian club. I took riding lessons and adored horses. You can feed her. I took the apple and gave it to the horse. My sweet, kind girl, never change. That was the happiest time of my life. But one day, everything changed. My mom died when I was 10. I couldn't recover for a long time and cried all the time. Dad took the loss hard, too. He started to lock himself in his office for hours and barely seemed to notice me. I really wanted him to talk to me, but it was like I wasn't even there. Hi, I'm Brittany. Despite everything I just told you, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of, but let's start at the beginning. By the time I went to high school, my dad and I were practically strangers. He always gave me awesome gifts, though. I even had my own credit card, and there was always plenty of pocket money on it. I could spend it however I wanted. I became the most popular girl in high school. I was pretty, I guess, so I never wanted for admirers. To be honest, I was quite proud of my hair. It was incredibly long and silky because I took good care of it. School was my little kingdom, and I felt like a queen in it. It was pretty great, but then one day my life was turned on its head again. I would never forget that day. When I came home from school, there was a woman I didn't recognize at our house. She was sitting in the kitchen and drinking coffee from Mom's cup. Who are you? The stranger was about to say something, but then Dad walked into the kitchen. Brittany, watch your tone. This is Fiona. I expected him to say she was a colleague or just a friend of his, but Dad's answer left me speechless. She's my fiancée. We're getting married soon. I couldn't believe my ears! I'm sorry I'm only telling you about it now. Fiona wanted me to introduce you to her sooner, but I couldn't pluck up the courage for it. Brittany, your father loves you. He was afraid you wouldn't understand him. He was right to be worried. I don't want you here, so don't expect us to become best friends. Brittany, even if you forgot about Mom, I haven't. I stormed off to my room and slammed the door shut. Fiona is my fiancée, blah blah blah. There will be no wedding. I won't allow it. No one will ever take Mom's place. The next day, I declared war on Fiona. Dad hoped we would have a family dinner at our house, but I had other plans. Brittany's throwing a party, heck yeah! Did she invite you too? I think she invited the whole school. That evening, dozens of students came over to our house. I turned on loud music, ordered food, and handed out drinks to everyone. We let loose and had a blast. Fiona and Dad came back home when the party was in full swing. You should have seen their faces. I came up to Dad and pointedly kissed him on the cheek. Welcome home, Dad. What is the meaning of this? Don't be mad. She just wants attention. At that moment, all I wanted to do was kick Fiona out of our house. But Dad led her upstairs and then chased my classmates away instead. Naturally, I wasn't about to give in that easily and came up with a new plan that I set in motion a few days later. I knew Dad had asked Fiona to move in with us. When the truck with her stuff arrived, I stole her suitcases. I gave away some of her things to homeless people and threw the rest of them away. Dad went ballistic when he found out what I had done. You crossed a line. Darling, it's not that bad. Brittany just needs some time. My clothes were out of fashion anyway. Fiona was acting like an angel, but I saw right through her. I had to make Dad see her true colors. You are grounded, Brittany. I might have lost the battle, but I was still going to win the war. One day, I overheard an interesting conversation. Fiona called a bridal salon and asked them to deliver her wedding dress to our house. After that, she and Dad left the house and I seized my chance. When the courier delivered the dress, I put it on and invited my classmates over. We went out into the yard and had a photo shoot like we were at a Holly festival. The pictures looked amazing and everyone was over the moon. Of course, all the colored powder ruined the wedding dress. It was every color of the rainbow now. When Dad and Fiona came back home, they were left speechless. I really liked this dress. Brittany, why do you hate me so much? I've had enough. I won't put up with your antics anymore. A couple of days after that, Dad told me to pack my things. He decided to send me to a sports camp. I couldn't talk him out of it. Back then, I thought he wanted to get rid of me and live happily ever after with Fiona. I'd never been to a sports camp before and had no idea what I was in for. I only packed the necessities. The sports camp was located in the mountains, and I hated it as soon as I saw it. There were tiny wooden houses there. They were hideous. Would I really have to live there? When I got out of the car, I saw several guys nearby. Their jaws dropped when they saw me. One of them looked like a real nerd. He immediately ran up to the car and took my suitcase suitcase from my dad. Let me help you. Louis, are you sure that's a good idea? The road in the camp was uneven and rocky, so rolling the suitcase wasn't a good option. Louis tried to pick it up and immediately collapsed to the ground. I turned to the other boys with a laugh. Any other volunteers? They ran up to that nerd and took the suitcase from him. At that moment, another guy came up to us. He seemed older than the others and looked like he worked out. Now he was a sight for sore eyes. You're Brittany, right? I'm Ethan. I smiled my most charming smile, but for some reason, Ethan just frowned at me. I hope you have some comfortable clothes in that huge suitcase of yours. If you mean sweatpants or sneakers, then no. That's not my style. I hope you're joking. Come on, I'll show you to your room. My worst fears came true. He led me to one of those creepy shacks. I didn't even get my own room. They wanted me to live with a roommate. Hi, I'm Cassie. I was itching to recommend a good stylist to her, but I also had bigger issues at the moment. Apparently, I could only take a hot shower according to a strict schedule, and we were going to have to share the bathroom with the boys. Everyone got up and went to bed according to the schedule too. It was a disaster. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. I love myself too much to get used to this. The first night at the camp was terrible, but getting up was even worse. When Ethan started shouting into a megaphone, I hated him from the bottom of my heart. When he said we had to go for a run, I almost exploded like a pressure cooker. He was gorgeous, but he had gone too far. Brittany, how are you planning on running in heels? It's obvious, isn't it? I'm not. I suddenly had a brilliant idea. Louis can run an extra lap instead of me. Yes, I don't mind. Ethan took another look at my shoes and sighed, resigned. While everyone was running laps, I watched from the sidelines, pleased with myself. At breakfast, all the guys offered me the best snacks. That improved my mood a bit. It felt like I'd conquered another small kingdom. Breakfast was almost over by the time Louis walked into the dining room, wheezing. Where have you been? I just finished running. Everyone roared with laughter. The next day, Cassie lent me her second pair of sneakers. I didn't want to wear them, but had to. We played tennis in the afternoon. All the boys went easy on me, so I scored more points than anyone. Brittany, you're so cool. I smiled condescendingly at the other girls. They were no match for me. One day, Ethan gave us special equipment and took us rock climbing. You need to listen to everything I say, and don't rush. Cassie was the best at climbing. She got up so fast like she had been doing it her entire life. Cassie, you're doing great! The other guys were also looking at her with admiration. I didn't like that someone else was the center of attention and decided to impress them too. I took a deep breath and started climbing up. Brittany, stop! You could fall! My long hair got caught on a clasp. I jerked and tried to get it free. My foot slipped off the edge and I fell. The climbing rope saved me. I hung off it for a few moments before Ethan got to me. He wrapped his arms around my waist and together we got down to the ground. I told you to stop. Why didn't you listen to me? You don't have the skills Cassie has, so don't try and show off. No guy had ever talked to me like that. It made my blood boil. Brittany, are you okay? I was so scared for you. I'm fine. It really stung that Ethan wasn't pining for me like all the other guys. I decided to make him fall for me no matter what. Watch the video to the end to find out what happened. The next day I ran alongside the other campers. When I ran past Ethan, I smiled and kept my back straight. But to be honest, I was exhausted. I even managed to do a few push-ups and volunteered to peel the potatoes for dinner. My perfect manicure was ruined, but Ethan didn't seem to notice my efforts, let alone praise me. As you know by now, I never gave up. Cassie was the only girl Ethan ever singled out, and I decided that wasn't acceptable. A few days after that, Cassie was on kitchen duty. She was supposed to make burgers for us. When she was distracted, I snuck into the kitchen and replaced the usual sauce with chili sauce. The guys looked like fire-breathing dragons at dinner. Cassie, what did you put in these? I think I used the wrong sauce. I love spicy food. I had to change up my game. It pissed Ethan off when we were late for morning workouts. So while Cassie was taking a hot shower, I took her clothes from the hanger and carried them back to our room. Where's Cassie? She's running late. I guess she decided to sleep in. At that moment, Cassie walked out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. Ethan stared at her with his eyes wide open. Well, I'm sure she'll join us soon. I wanted to rip my own hair out. I ran into some other girls on the way back to my room. We saw you steal Cassie's clothes. You won't turn Ethan against her. Why are you so obsessed with him anyway? All the other guys have crushes on you. That's none of your business. You'll never make friends if you keep this up. Oh please, like I want to be friends with you anyway. Soon, all the girls at camp refused to talk to me. But I knew they were just jealous because I was more beautiful and popular than all of them. A few days later, Ethan took us camping. We packed our backpacks and went hiking in the mountains. Naturally, the boys took turns dragging my backpack. Louis got the honor of carrying my makeup bag. We set up a tent camp next to a horse pasture. I've always wanted to learn how to ride them, but I'm so weak I'm afraid I won't even be able to get on a horse.
Horse riding is an art. It's not for everyone.
That's when I realized it was my chance to prove myself. I used to take horse riding lessons, remember? Of course, it had been a while, but it was like riding a bike. Muscle memory wouldn't let me down. I came up to one of the horses and tried to get on it. It took some trial and error, but I succeeded.
Brittany, get down right now!
Don't worry, I've got this under control. The horse suddenly took off at a furious gallop. I tried to hold onto its neck, but it didn't work. My hand slipped off and I fell right into the mud. Everyone crowded around me.
Have you lost your mind? Why would you try to ride an unsaddled horse? You just spooked it.
I wanted to slap the living daylights out of him. Why was he talking about the horse instead of comforting me? No one tried to help me up. Lewis was the only one who held out a hand to me. Did you hurt yourself? I ignored him and went back to the tents. I had to wash the dirt off in an icy mountain river. My mood had never been darker, and I decided that looking pretty would help me feel better. I took off Cassie's ugly sneakers and put on pretty shoes and makeup. That evening, the boys built a bonfire. Everyone crowded around it, talking, playing the guitar, and singing. I turned heads when I appeared. Things were looking up. I decided that was my chance and asked Ethan if we could talk alone. I'm not sure how to say it. I've liked you ever since I saw you. Will you go out with me? I turned up the charm to the maximum. No one said no to me. No one. Except Ethan, apparently.
I'm sorry, but I already have a girlfriend. I'm in love with Cassie and confessed to her a couple days ago.
It felt like I'd been slapped. I couldn't believe he chose a plain Jane over me. Being rejected was humiliating. I wanted to sink through the floor. Instead of going back to the bonfire, I headed to my tent. I kept tossing and turning all night, replaying the scene with Ethan over and over in my mind. I desperately wanted to get back at him and decided it was time for desperate measures. Early in the morning, I went outside, snuck into Ethan's tent, and quietly lay down next to him. His eyes bugged out when he woke up and saw me.
Brittany? What are you doing here?
It was cold in my tent. I hoped you'd warm me up.
Go back to your tent, now!
I heard Cassie's voice outside and spoke up to make sure she would hear us. Ethan, you're so cool. When Cassie looked into the tent, I hugged him. Ethan tried to get up, but his clothes got caught in my hair and he fell back down. At first, Cassie froze, and then she turned around and stormed away.
Wait!
Ethan gave me a withering look and ran after her. I thought getting revenge on Ethan would feel good, but for some reason I was even more miserable. When I walked out of the tent, I bumped into Lewis. I heard someone shouting. Are you all right?
No, I'm not! Stop following me around! I'll never give you a chance, you loser!
I didn't mean to be so rude to him, but the words just slipped out. The other kids stared at us. Even my admirers were frowning at me and whispering something to each other. Lewis looked down and adjusted his ridiculous glasses. I'm sorry. I won't bother you anymore. I wanted to be left alone, so I went to the pasture, but soon Ethan caught up to me.
You're so selfish and full of yourself. Do you really think the other girls are jealous of you? You don't care about anyone but yourself. I want you to leave the camp. I've already called your father. He's coming tomorrow night to take you home.
I had a lump in my throat as I watched Ethan leave. His words stung. Was he right? Was I just a narcissistic egoist? As I looked at the horses, I suddenly remembered my mother. My kind, sweet girl. Never change. One of the horses suddenly came closer and bumped my shoulder. I hesitantly patted its nose. Hot tears streamed down my face. I suddenly felt like a lonely little girl. Come on, I wasn't that bad. It's just I wanted Dad to pay attention to me. But he shut me out and bought me expensive gifts instead of spending time with me. The horse snorted encouragingly, and I hugged its neck.
I'm sorry, Mom. I won't let you down again.
It suddenly hit me how terribly I had treated everyone. Ethan was right. I made everything about myself. I was overcome with guilt and decided to fix everything. I went back to our camp, found Cassie, and told her what had actually happened between me and her boyfriend. Of course, at first, she was furious with me, but that quickly passed and we had a heart-to-heart. I'm really sorry. Thank you for telling me the truth. Cassie and Ethan made up and I apologized to Lewis. I'm sorry I snapped at you today. You're a good guy. Instead of holding a grudge, Lewis immediately forgave me. I only see you as a friend, though. That's enough for me. Simply apologizing didn't feel like enough, and I came up with another brilliant plan. The next morning, we got back to the camp. I came up to Ethan and asked him to bring some horses to us.
What are you up to now?
It's nothing bad this time, I promise. While Ethan was looking for the owner of the horses, I was preparing snacks and decorations. Everyone kept throwing curious glances at me. What's all this for? I only smiled mysteriously without answering any of their questions. In the late morning, I invited all the girls to my room and gave them my clothes. Wow! The boys were stunned when they saw the looks I'd come up with. Ethan had come back with a couple of horses. I turned on some music and took out my Polaroid. I know that I hurt many of you. Let's take some cool photos of you as an apology. It's going to be fun. Everyone loved my idea. Not a single girl was left without beautiful photos. Some of the boys took selfies with the horses too.
Lewis was hovering on the sidelines, but I convinced him to join us. I was the last one to be photographed. I was watching the beautiful sunset, so I didn't notice a car arrive at the camp at first. Later, Dad said that when he saw me on a horse, it took his breath away.
You look so much like your mother.
After all those years, we finally had a proper conversation. Dad realized that he hadn't spent enough time with me, and I promised I wouldn't bother him and Fiona anymore. I stayed at the camp for a few more weeks after that, except now I actually took part in all the activities there properly. When I got home, I signed up for riding lessons again. By the way, Lewis and I lived in the same city, and I convinced him to sign up for the classes with me. It might be hard to believe, but Lewis is making great progress. Our coach sings his praises. I've changed, both inside and outside. My long hair was often in the way, so I recently decided to get a haircut. What do you think? Does it suit me?